Did Israel start a new full-blown genocide after was still ongoing on a lower pace following the ceasefire agreement? Benjamin Netanyahu declared that he ordered multiple intense strikes on the Gaza Strip, and the results of these strikes were horrifying. 9 martyrs at least, including a family of 4, a man, a woman, and their 2 children. One of them is an infant. Israel carried out these strikes, according to Israeli sources, as a response to an attack being conducted against one of their forces inside of the city of Rafah. They're claiming that Hamas is breaching the ceasefire and also staging the burial of some of the prisoners of war, pretending like they're taking them and they're actually burying them. Firstly, this video that Israel published about Hamas burying an Israeli prisoner of war is a fake video. It's not a Hamas member, and the person who was buried, we don't know their identity. Secondly, the attack that happened inside of Rafah is an attack that the Palestinian resistance denied. Meaning, well, how can we verify who actually carried out this attack? The Palestinian resistance had a confirmation after the Israeli attacks and after Netanyahu declared that he's going to restart some attacks on Gaza by saying that we did not have any involvement on the shooting in Rafah, and we affirm our commitment to the ceasefire agreement. They said that Israel only finds excuses to justify more attacks against the Palestinian people again. So what's happening exactly? Well, number one, there's a reason why we're talking about Rafah. Rafah is an area that is technically still under Israeli control outside of what is called the Yellow Line that the Israeli forces withdrew to, meaning that Israel can carry out certain operations in that area without any problems whatsoever. They can stage an attack, they can kill their own people under the Hannibal Directive, and they can only try and blame the Palestinian side of conducting such a breach when the Palestinian resistance said that it's not in our interest even to have any breaches. The confirmation that came from Israel also spoke about a notification to the American side. The Americans showed an understanding to the Israeli attack, and a couple of days ago, Marco Rubio said that Israel would respond if they feel like their forces are facing danger. Now, if Israel is facing danger, supposedly in an area like Rafah, why did they go and attack families inside of Gaza City and in the Sabra neighborhood and kill an infant and a child in the process and innocent people? Of course, that's to do with the Israeli depravity. And there is no reason to start talking about the Israeli depravity that has been very evident in the past 2 years. The whole world is aware of the Israeli depravity and the actions that they can take against the Palestinian people. However, does this mean that the ceasefire ended? And does this mean that Israel is back to a full-scale genocidal campaign inside of the Gaza Strip? So far, no. And there are multiple reasons for that. Number one, Benjamin Netanyahu did not declare that he will be deploying forces inside of the Gaza Strip past the Yellow Line. Number two, the Americans also said that there's not going to be an all-out campaign following this. The last time that such a breach happened, Israel carried out over 120 strikes inside of Gaza, again after an attempt took place in Rafah, or an attack took place in Rafah, where Israel clearly either had an accident or killed one of its own soldiers to justify an attack against the Palestinian resistance. After all, those same people who are being looked for in a very grotesque manner, seeing as there are approximately 10,000 Palestinians under the rubble, have been killed by none other than Israel. under the Hannibal Directive, and that has been confirmed by multiple reports inside of Israel. Therefore, there are no indications that a full-blown genocidal campaign at the scales that we have seen before the entry of the ceasefire is going to take place. What is happening and what has been happening, with or without an excuse from Israel to justify such attacks, is a continuation of the genocide on low heat by several things. Number one, Israel not totally declaring the ending of the war, although this is somewhat being understood that it's the case inside of Israel, and the American side said so too. Then the calculations of Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu is a man who has increased the intensity of the attacks in Gaza and in other parts too for his political and personal interests. And also Benjamin Netanyahu is worried about the upcoming elections, and he wants to show his current coalition and his base that he is still following up on the genocide and not stopping there, because the Israelis as a state, if we're talking about as a state in Israel, it's as if you're talking about a vampire. They're used to sucking blood, and they need to see killing and murder on a day-to-day basis. Therefore, they are still conducting these attacks. And the problem that we're seeing now is how fragile this ceasefire agreement is. Despite the fact that there is a ceasefire agreement, it's a weak ceasefire agreement where Israel is being enabled to continue its barbarity and crimes against humanity against the Palestinian people. That is due primarily to a very weak Arab and Muslim position behind the Palestinian side. How? Well, should there have been a stronger position from countries like Egypt and Jordan, to say the least, Israel wouldn't have been in a situation where it can conduct such massive breaches in the ceasefire. And it wouldn't necessarily had to come up with these excuses to go ahead and kill more Palestinian people. That, again, doesn't mean that there is no ceasefire agreement that is ongoing, but it's a weak ceasefire agreement. Now, where are things going after this? Last time, if you recall, when Benjamin Netanyahu had these attacks in Gaza, he also tried to stop the aid from going in. After he tried to stop the aid from going into the Gaza Strip, he immediately did a U-turn within literally 2 hours and said that no, the aid is going to resume within 24 hours, just after we finish these attacks in Gaza. And when there were some people thinking about this being an extension or a restart of the genocide, the American side again called Benjamin Netanyahu and told him that you can't go on a full-scale genocide. Therefore, from what we're seeing so far, the ceasefire agreement is still taking place in its weak form, with its flaws, which means that Israel will continue to kill innocent people on a day-to-day basis inside of Gaza, just as they have been doing so inside of the West Bank. And the other reasons, apart from the Israeli depravity in relation to these killings, is the fact that Israel doesn't like to see the Palestinians living in any normal conditions. You're talking about an entity that has been built on this hate and bigotry towards others, towards anything else apart from them. And they don't want to see the Palestinian people even recovering following 2 years of genocide. And some of these attacks that Israel still conducts without any excuse even that they were attacked, for example, in Rafah, are destructive. They're still destroying buildings. Why would they continue to destroy buildings in Gaza after all of these attacks that they conducted? To not leave anything whatsoever. So even if they think that there is one person, for example, who will be able to go back to a half-functioning home, they will go and destroy it. And that's the reality, and that will be the reality that will most likely continue so long as Israel as a Zionist entity remains there and continues its crimes against humanity.